What's up everybody, welcome once again to the SP Entertainment video channel. I'm your host and resident DJ Rob Awtkazt, and in this video we're going to get a little bit nostalgic because I want to talk about what I believe is one of the fundamental building blocks when it comes to DJing, and that's the turntable. So in this video we're going to go over key components on the turntable, its proper usage, and I'd also like to share with you some of the tips and tricks that I've picked up over the years as a DJ. So without further ado, I dedicate this to the veterans that haven't had the turntable talk with other DJs for quite some time, and to those new DJs that want to start off DJ using a turntable. Here we go. Okay, Turntable 101, general overview. Obviously here's your platter, that's where you put your record. Here are your strobe indicators on the side, we're going to go over that later. Here is your off and on power knob. Right underneath that is your strobe light that corresponds with these strobe indicators. Your start stop button, your speed buttons, which is for 33 RPM and 45 RPM. Here's your pop-up light, helps you see your track grooves when you're queuing in the dark. Here's your pop-up light release button. Here's your pitch adjustment slider. Goes from -8, +8, and right in the middle is the quartz lock indicator, meaning that you are exactly at the speed that you selected. So if it's 33 RPM or 45 RPM, if you're in this middle section where it's slit, then that means you're going exactly at the speed that you selected, 33 or 45. Here's your tone arm right here. At the end is your head shell. The head shell holds the cartridge and the cartridge holds the needle. Here is your clamp for the tone arm, and that basically prevents the tone arm from swinging like crazy when you're transporting your turntable. Here is the lever that lifts up your tone arm. So if you're trying to cue, actually back in the days that's how you would cue and put your needle down on the record track, by lifting this up and down. Don't worry if you don't see it now, we're actually going to zoom in later because this is where we're going to focus on later on in the video. I don't know if you can see that correctly, but this is your anti-skating adjustment. That skating basically means this tone arm skating around on your record. So adjusting this would help alleviate some of that, especially if you're scratching. Here is your counterweight for the head shell. So basically, depending on how heavy your cartridge needle combination is, you would offset it by using that counterweight. You'll adjust it that way, so that it's not too light or too heavy, and like I said, we'll go over that in detail later. Right here, typically if you're buying your turntable used, this will be missing. This is your 45-inch record adapter. You'll put that in your spindle so that when you put in the 45s, you know, you'll be able to play it. The 45s have a wider spindle compared to the regular 12-inch, so you'll use that adapter if you want to play 45s. This slip mat is actually aftermarket. Usually when you get your turntable new from the store, your turntable would come with a pretty heavy rubber slip mat. Actually, it's not a slip mat, it's more like a grip mat, so that basically, when you put your record on it, it'll grip nice and tight, it won't slip, so you'll play your record normally. But now in our DJing realm, you need slip mats so that you can slip your records backwards when you're scratching. It's easier. Another thing that your turntable would come with that you might not see if you're buying a turntable used is the counterweight, which is this teeny little thing right here. So the counterbalance weight right there, you could actually add this on top of that if you have an extra heavy cartridge / needle combination. So let me zoom in so I can show you in detail each key component that I just went over. And let me start with the power and the strobe. Okay, this is the power knob. The top part turns it on, turns it off, and the bottom right here is the strobe. Here are the indicator dots. So you can see this is the percentage of how fast you're going. And if you look right there, the bigger dot, that's at 0%, 3.3% faster, plus 6%, and negative 3.3 faster. Now, when you turn the platter on, or start spinning the platter, this strobe effect, here you go, let me darken it up for you, actually shows you. As you can see, this 0% right here, the 0% indicator, if you see a steady flow of that that big dot, then that means you are at 0%. So you can see the strobe indicates that I'm at 0%, and the reason for that is, I apologize right now for the clicking, but my tripod kind of sucks. But I'm at quartz lock. Now quartz lock is basically similar to quartz watches, where it's very accurate, stays on point. The quartz watch doesn't deviate from, you know, its accuracy. Quartz lock in this case is the same thing for our turntable. So once quartz lock is on, that means you'll have a more accurate reading on your strobe. And basically that strobe is equivalent to a CDJ's speed indicator. So in your CDJs or your MIDI controllers or Serato, where it indicates how many BPMs you got, back then when we don't have that technology, sliding your pitch adjustment back, you see the dot, now it's slowing down, and putting it back to quartz lock makes it steady, so that means you're at your original speed, and sliding the adjustment more obviously makes it faster. So you have that visual cue, so you'll know if you are playing your record at original speed, slower, or faster. And you could use the other dots as well as indicators, whether you are, as it says right here, minus 3.3%, plus 3.3%, or plus 6% faster. So these are your visual cues to help you, besides listening to the song, to help you visually synchronize the songs that you have between two turntables. So back then we don't have the sync button to help you out. We don't have any BPM readouts to help you out. We have this visual cue, and we also had our listening skills to help us synchronize the songs that we're mixing. So that's what that is for. Power, strobe, and these indicator dots, they're not for design purposes. They were actually used as visual aids for DJs to help them sync their mix. Now just to backtrack here again, as I mentioned, that's your start stop button, that's your speed selector. You have 33 revolutions per minute, which is for your 12-inch records. You have 45 revolutions per minute, which is your 45, which is smaller than this. Again, as I mentioned, here is your spindle. Now, why am I making a big deal out of the spindle? Well, back then, when we're mixing, in order for us to slow down the record, we had a couple of choices. You could either use your pitch adjustment there, which there's a little bit of a lag. So if you're trying to mix on the fly pretty fast, you either had a choice of slowing down the platter by, you know, like holding the side of the platter here, or if you want even more minute tweaking of slowing down your record, you would actually pinch the spindle right here. Either pinch it tight to make it slower, or kind of help it along by turning it a little bit, or actually pushing the record a little bit. Well, for my intents and purposes, when I was trying to make it a little bit faster, I mean, typically I'm spinning 12-inch records, I would have my finger on the 33 button and actually tap the 45 button to help it speed up a little bit. So in your CDJs, you have those little plus or minus pitch control nudge buttons to make it a little bit faster, a little bit slower. This is how we used to do it on the turntables. So if you actually pay attention to the strobe, right? If you pay attention to the strobe, and I'm pressing, let me back up so you can see the 45 light. So if I'm holding down the 33 light, I'm pressing down the 45 light a little bit. You see how it helps it out a little bit? So if I'm trying to help speed it up a bit, boom, 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 I can nudge it using the 33, holding it down, and then the 45 making it faster. Some DJs, they prefer to use their fingers by just helping it along this way. It's good for me too, but sometimes if I just want to nudge it just a little bit when I'm close to getting that song synced in to the next song, then I'll use the 33 and 45 button, or hold down this spindle right here to slow it down. So that's a little bit of a tip and trick that I picked up along the way. Hopefully you guys could use that too if you don't already do. If you are a starting DJ, that's something that you could consider to help make your syncing faster. And right here, again, I apologize for all the noise my tripod's making, but this right here is your pop-up light. So you can put it away if you don't like it, and here's how you would release it. Basically, it helps you see your tracks better, because obviously records have grooves, and those grooves are what you see as tracks. So in this case, that's a track. That's it. These are the middle of the tracks. That's the beginning of a new track. That's the beginning of a new track. So in this case, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sub tracks, and this major break right here is a new track as well. So the pop-up light will help you see it better. So you can see the track now because of the angle of my overhead light. But imagine you're in a club and you don't have that overhead light. The pop-up light will help you see your tracks better. So if you're going to lay your needle down, it's easier for you to spot where you're gonna put the needle on the record. So that'll be the beginning of a new track. Okay. All right. Now, as you saw before, this is your pitch adjust. Make it slower, make it faster, and leave it at the original speed. Here is your head shell. Your head shell is where you attach your cartridge, and your cartridge is the module where you plug in your needle, and the needle is what goes into the record grooves, and that's what picks up the audio from the record and transposes it to the rest of the record player and into your mixer. So I know it's being redundant, I know it's really super basic, so for your veterans out there, just hang tight, but I just want to make sure that I cover that for the new DJs out there. Now this little section right here I could cover a little bit later, because there's so much more involved in this little piece of this turntable. So I'd like to go in detail with that later, so we'll postpone that till closer to the end, and then we'll talk about head shells, placement, proper weight, cartridges, needles, care, so on and so forth. So for now we are gonna go into this little complicated mishmash robotic Autobot looking section right here. It's pretty basic, but it's really good to know how to calibrate this and how to do it correctly. So let's change positions and go on that side. Okay, now on to this section of the turntable. As I mentioned, this little clamp right here, that's your clamp to prevent your tone arm from going crazy all over the place when you're transporting a turntable. This piece right here is your anti-skating adjustment, and what that is for is it actually controls a pressurized spring that leans against the pole where your tone arm is vertically attached to. So if you could imagine this as a pin that goes straight down, this actually has a spring that leans against it, and it helps stabilize it. So when you're scratching, or if you have records that have warped grooves or have shallow grooves, it helps keep your tone arm from moving even at the smallest bit, and keeps your needle from skipping, and especially if you're scratching. So you won't get that skip by adjusting the anti-skate. The sensitivity setting goes from 0 to 3. So typically, depending on the weight of your cartridge, let's say if your cartridge has an optimal operating weight of 3 grams, you would usually match it with the anti-skate of 3 as well. I don't remember where I learned that from, but it's either I read that somewhere back many years ago, or that's something that I learned from another DJ. But that's what that anti-skating adjustment is for. And since we're here already, here's your counterweight. The counterweight basically is what you would use to make sure that your cartridge is at the optimal weight setting that it's designed to perform under. So let's say the cartridge that I'm using now, which is the SC35C from Shure, I believe the optimal setting for it is at 3.5 grams. Then basically, to calibrate it, I would make it as slight as possible until the counterweight and the cartridge itself is even, like even and balanced. Once it's balanced, then this little black section right here where the numbers are, it spins independently. So once everything is even, you would actually adjust that and bring it back to 0. So you can see where that notch is, that's where you line it up. So it's 0, and once it's at 0, then you would turn it again to get to the weight that you need it to go under, which is 3.5 grams. So now that's the optimal weight setting for my cartridge. So when I scratch, it has the best tracking ability, but not too heavy to a point where I'm actually damaging the physical vinyl record. Some DJs, they don't care about that. They just want it the heaviest possible, which is conventional thinking says if it's heavy, it's gonna stay in the groove, it's not gonna move. Yes, but also at the same time, you're damaging your vinyl record, because now you have a piece of diamond or something extremely hard against a soft material such as vinyl. And that's why older records from a lot of hip-hop DJs or scratch DJs, and they do a lot of scratching in certain sections, certain breaks, after a while it'll start doing damage on the record, and the record will eventually sound like crap and it will need replacement. So that's your counterweight in a nutshell. Now if you have heavier cartridges, or actually some DJs, I even did it myself back in the day, certain needles, we would actually, like, depending on the party, some house parties, obviously the structure of the venue might not be the best, so when people are dancing, the floor would jump, and in order for the needle to stop skipping, we would actually put a nickel, a dime, a quarter on top of the head shell. So we'll put it on top of the head shell right here, I mean just sitting on it, to prevent it from skipping. Now sometimes you would have to use an additional counterweight for the extra weight that you're putting onto the needle, and that'll actually screw. Let me see if I could move up here. This piece will actually screw in the back of your tone arm right there, on top of the added weight that you have here. So if you need some extra counterweight to use, you have this. And like I said, if you buy your turntable used, you might not see this, but then again, not a lot of people use this. I mean, I don't even know if people still calibrate the weight on their cartridges to match the counterweight, especially if they're using Serato. So but back then it's critical that you match the weight of your cartridge slash needle combination to the counterweight that you have, so that you will get the optimum operating weight for your cartridge. Because if it's too light, you'll actually get less bass from your needle, and if it's too heavy, yeah, it gets pretty much good bass, but the problem is you're damaging your records. And back then, since it's not like Serato where you could have multiple songs playing in one control vinyl, you have to really take care of each one of your vinyl records, because each one of those tracks is one song, and they get pretty expensive. So that's it in a nutshell for this section. And let me go and show you guys the head shell and its little intricacies. Alright, now that you've seen pretty much the general overview in the turntable, let's go to the most important part, where basically the sound is generated. The cartridge, the head shell, and the needle combination, and this is the piece that basically comes in contact with the record. The head shell is basically a small piece of, could be metal, plastic, whatever, where it attaches to your tone arm. You usually have 4 pins there that corresponds to the 4 pins in the tone arm, and usually you'll have these cables that attaches to your cartridge, and your cartridge is basically the piece that holds your needle. So let me pull this out so you can see. Okay, alright, so that's your cartridge, that's your needle, and this dirty needle actually has a little thing over here, and the tip is typically diamond or something similar, and that's the piece that stays with the record, thus kind of like, you know, the laser reads the CD. This is what stays in the record groove and generates the sound. Now, you got different kind of cartridges. You have, or you know, cartridge slash needle setup. You got these that attach to the head shells. You have these that's basically, I would call it like a unit body design, where the piece that attaches to the tone arm is connected to the main cartridge, and that's where the needle connects to already. So it's all in one piece. You know, the pros about using these kind of cartridge needle combinations is that you don't have to worry about the cabling that's involved with using a head shell approach. As you can see, I remember earlier I was talking about using a nickel, a dime, or something to weigh down my head shell. Stanton actually has this thing where it adds an additional 2 grams to the head shell, and it just screws on. Because like I said, back then we would put nickels, dimes, quarters, or whatever to stop the needle from skipping, especially if the party's jumping. And the thing is, it's just sitting on top. So if you move a little bit too much, or you know, you move your tone arm, that nickel, dime, or whatever coin that you put in there can potentially fall off. This design by Stanton, basically it screws onto the head shell, and you know, you don't have to worry about it coming out. And I needed the extra weight because this cartridge actually, it's one of the inexpensive cartridges from Stanton. It actually sounded better and performed better and tracked better, meaning it skipped less when it had the additional weight on it. Now, one thing that you would notice, this thing right here, the cartridge is crooked, and I don't know if you know why, but I'll tell you anyway. Here's the background on this. These, as you can see, are just straight from the tone arm. It's basically, if you see the tone arm, it's kind of like an S shape. The original design for the turntable is to have, well, at least for the Technics, the design is to have this S shape on it, so that when you have your record, it's supposed to follow the path, or the design path of the record's groove. So let me show it to you guys. This might get a little lengthy, but I feel that it's important information for you to know. So you could fast forward this video now if you think it doesn't apply to you, but if you think it does, come check this out. You see this S shape on the tone arm? You can see that the needle is pointed this way. Now, by design, supposedly, it's supposed to track the groove. Let me see if I could angle this so you can see better. It's supposed to track the groove and have the same path as the groove is going. So since the grooves are going this way, since it's circular, at the point of contact, it's supposed to be pretty much at the same angle. But to tell you the truth, it only applies when you're at the outermost section of the record. Once you start getting into the middle of the record, or you actually start going into the inner part of the record, there's now a slight angle that kind of curves in more. So it's no longer parallel to the groove path as it was originally designed. So it'll work best here, it'll have good tracking, but once you get in the middle or a little bit over here, the tracking gets kind of discombobulated because now you have an angled approach to each of the groove, because each one of these angles, it gets more severe the closer you get to the inside part of the record. So the original design, the concept was good, but when it comes to application, especially for turntablists and scratch DJs, it didn't work too well. That's when using cartridges like these kind of had a little bit of a con to it. But now, back in the 90s, where everybody got fascinated by the whole turntablism movement, including myself, I got involved with you know, some DJ crews, and you know, collaborated with some other DJs as well that were pretty well versed when it comes to turntablism, and this is what I picked up from them, and I learned kind of on my own at the same time why this is the best approach for it. Now, if you can see that this angle kind of offset this outward angle now kind of offsets the inward angle that this tone arm design has. If you actually track the path of this angle where the needle is to the base of the tone arm, you would see that it's a straight line. So the offset that you do by turning your cartridge outwards now creates a virtual straight line for your tone arm, and just doing that actually changed the approach angle on your record. So once you do that, now it's as if you have a straight tone arm. And if you guys actually look around, especially like in those Awtkazt turntables, they actually changed the tone arm design to have a straight tone arm, which basically is the same end result that we're trying to achieve by angling this cartridge outwards to offset the angle that was created by design for this turntable. So now it's as if we have a straight tone arm. The approach angle for the groove now is virtually parallel at all parts of the record. And now, because that's parallel, the groove where the needle meets the record is now basically approached better by the needle. So now it has a better tracking for your record. I mean, back then, depending on, you know, the test pressing or the actual record that you got, I mean, some would have shallower grooves, some would have deeper grooves, but all in all, the effect that you get by offsetting the angle of your cartridge would greatly increase your tracking ability for your record. And at the same time, what's good about it is, now that you have better tracking by offsetting the angle, you have less requirement of additional weight on your head shell. So you don't have to add that extra nickel or dime to keep your needle from skipping. By doing this, you're getting a better grip on your grooves, and at the same time, less weight. Less weight means less damage on your record. You're more than likely to have records that'll last longer, even though you're scratching. So basically, better return on investment and less damage to your precious records. Especially now, those records are more than likely rare and no longer available out in the market, especially the classic ones. Alright, so that's the the theory behind offsetting your cartridge. So that's another tip and trick that, I don't know, it seemed to have been a very closely guarded secret among other DJs back then. Everybody had their own approach to it, but here it is, I'm sharing it with you. And if you saw this little white plastic piece, this actually came with the turntable also. What this is basically a tool where you would put your cartridge in, and you see here where you could, you know, adjust where you tighten your cartridge. That basically helps you align the end of your needle to make sure that it's right at its optimum performing length, because you can move this back and forward, back and forward. As you can see, this is perfectly lined up at the tip. Even though it's angled, the tip matches when it comes to the distance. So again, unfortunately you might not have this when you get your turntable used, but might want to look into it. It's been a part of my kit where if I'm changing cartridges, I definitely make sure that I line up the tip of my needle to the tip of this, regardless, even if I'm offsetting the angle. As you can see how extreme the angle is here. If you actually check out the unibody design here, it's the same thing. The tip of the needle is exactly at the edge of this. So, but I think you know, they have newer cartridges like this that has better tracking ability. I mean, this is, I would consider this ancient in DJ terms. Stanton TALs. I've had these since the 90s. So, you know, just to give you some background on how nicely I treat my stuff. Same thing with these Stanton 500 AL2s, ancient. I don't even know if they still make these things, but you know, I still got them. They're still good. Just gotta keep buying spare needles. SC35Cs. I mean, they were top of the line back then. I'm not gonna tell you when, but I know they make better ones, especially for Seratos. They're easier on your DVS vinyl, and supposedly gives better digital readouts to your DVS system. So that's it for the Headshell piece of your turntable. Let me show you how to calibrate the weight. Alright, now we go on to calibrating the weight and also the approach angle of your stylus or needle. Now, let me see if I could get my finger close enough. If you could see that little pointy thing, that's the actual needle itself. That's the bracket that holds the needle. And this red piece right here, if you could see the bottom part, if you just trace that and look at the record right here, they're parallel. It's really important that this piece and this piece of your stylus is parallel to your record, because being parallel to your record will give you the best tracking ability for your needle or your stylus. Now let me back up over here. That approach angle can be modified by using this bottom piece right here. Let me zoom in real quick, because I forgot to show you guys in detail what this base piece is. And that's basically the height adjustment for this whole platform here. There's actually a lock. Let me see if I could just lift up the camera here. Alright, get a better angle. There's a lock right here. Let's see if I could give you a better view. See right there, it says lock. that actually locks and unlocks this base piece right here. And this base piece, let me put this down, lock it down so I don't mess it up. This base piece actually, you see it? You see that piece right here? It moves. And you could increase and decrease the height of that platform. And here is the part, pardon me, that's the part right there. If you see that little point, that's your indicator on where you need to line it up. So you can make it as high or as low as you need to, but whatever height you pick, you have to make sure that your stylus would look parallel to your record. So in this case, the height adjustment that I needed to make for this specific cartridge was 0. So let me adjust this back to 0 and go back at that angle where we were. Okay. So let me adjust it now. Get it to 0. Okay, that's lined up. Lock it in place. And we're ready to calibrate. Now, this specific cartridge and stylus combination works best at 3 grams as the setting. So what I would do, let's see if I could lower this a bit so you can see the actual angle that I'm trying to achieve here. Okay, so it's about, alright, so that's about even to the platter of the record. So let me back up a bit. So first things first, I have to make sure that the cartridge and the weight or the counterbalance is even. So I would actually put this closer to the record, keep decreasing the weight on my counterweight until, actually you have to make sure that your anti-skate is at 0 also, because if not, this thing will actually start moving back by itself because of that pressurized spring. So if you leave it at 0, no pressure, wherever you leave it at, it'll stay there. Alright, so let me take this down. As you can see, the stylus is still low, so that means it's not exactly even yet. So if it's even, the cartridge would start lifting up like that. But obviously the counterweight is heavier than the cartridge, that's why it's all the way up. So we'll adjust it down until we get just about a slight lift, which is right there, basically just hovering over the record. So right now, if I leave this down, I'm just hovering the record, and that's what we're shooting for. Just a slight hover, not touching the record, not overly high, just hovering like that. You can even adjust it even a little bit more, just so that you're basically almost touching the record. Look at that. Let me see if I can change the angle here so you can see it, but it's barely touching the record. So if I put it down right there in the record, it just skates right off, not touching it at all. Alright, so now that that weight is set, if you guys remember this part right here, let me zoom in. My indicator is actually off right now. It's telling me I'm at 3.4, which is, that's my I apologize for the bad camera work, but there we go. I'm at 3.4, and what I would do right now is I would hold this weight, but this front piece is adjustable, so I'm holding the weight in place so the weight would not adjust, but the indicator would. This is just a free spinning thing right here, and now that I'm able to move it, I set it at 0. So now that I'm on 0, initially I said the cartridge performs best at 3 grams. Now I would turn this until I get 3 grams. Now I'm at my peak performance weight. After I set that to 3 grams, I'm supposed to adjust the anti-skate to the maximum as well, which is 3. Oops, sorry about that. And there it is. So we have our needle cartridge evened out and adjusted to the optimum weight, and also adjusted to the optimum anti-skate setting. So now when I play it, it'll give me the best sound, the best tracking, and also the least amount of record wear, which is very important, especially if you're actually playing vinyl, because your vinyl collection is virtually priceless by now. A lot of those original classic pressings, you'll never be able to get them again unless you're getting in MP3 format and playing it through Serato or your other DVS of choice. So make sure you have the right cartridge weight setting, you have the right cartridge height setting, and the right anti-skating for your preference, actually, because some cartridges and needles, I actually set them up with no anti-skating, since they're pretty heavy, and the optimum performance weight for them is, you know, on the heavier side. So I really don't need the anti-skating. Sometimes anti-skating will actually make them skip more. So that's a little paradox that exists within, you know, the DJ world when it comes to cartridges and needle settings. Alright, so that's the overview and key components and tips and tricks part of this video. Lastly, I just wanted to add, you know, just for ish and giggles, the setup type, or the setup style for the turntable. This is the standard setup style, the old school way of you know, playing records. Basically, you have your you know, tone arm to the right, and it's the standard style. There's also another setup where it's called battle style. Now, why is it called battle style? Basically, back when DJs would battle, they would actually do tricks on the turntable, and doing it in the conventional setting like this makes it kind of hard, because if you're going back and forth, let's say this is your left turntable and you're going back and forth between the turntable and then your mixer, then there's a big chance that you'll hit the tone arm that's currently placed on the record, and you'll mess up your whole set doing that way. Now, if you turn your turntable vertically, hence battle mode, now you're moving your tone arm free and clear. Now it's on the top part, so your tone arm will be over here, and if you need to do anything, let's say this is your left turntable, you have to go to the mixer back and forth. Now you have a clear path between the turntable and your mixer. So if you're doing physical tricks, you know, using your stomach or your back or your mouth to, you know, bring the crossfader back and forth, yes, they did and I did that playing around with it, you have a cleaner path. That's the battle mode right there. You know, so you're still able to scratch, and your turntable's tone arm is free and clear of your work path. So just a little tidbit for those new DJs if they're not sure or not aware on what the battle setup is, or you know what the standard setup is. That's something for you to know. It's a little add-on for you. Hope you like it. Alright, so that's it with our video, Turntable 101. I know it's a little bit nostalgic for you vets out there. Definitely, if I missed anything, or if you have any tips and tricks of your own that you'd like to share with us, hit me up in the comment section. If I have to do a video to address it, then I'll do another one. Apologize if it's a little bit impromptu. I got a little bit carried away. I like this videotaping actually, since I miss talking about the turntable, since everyone's into CDJs and MIDI controllers nowadays. So if the camera works a little bit choppy every now and then, I apologize. But I hope the overall material is helpful and informative to you guys. I had fun making this video. And definitely, if you have any comments, like I said, tips and tricks, hit me up in the comment section. You can give me a call. Phone number 732-993-8773, or you can even send me a text message. I'll get it. And excuse me, again, the phone number is 732-993-8773. That's the SP Entertainment main hotline. If I don't get to pick up, definitely you get my voicemail. Just leave me a voicemail. I appreciate the feedback, and that's how we improve our shows. Whether it's the mix series or the video series, you know, your feedback is very, very helpful. So don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You know, we'll keep you in the loop with any new updates, any new uploads. You know, definitely subscribe, and you know, like us in our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/rob.awtkast. So that's rob.awtkast. You could also follow me on Twitter @DJ Awtkazt, and again, that's DJAWTKAZT. And you know, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.